Everybody living now. Everybody.
What's up, everybody? Wacky49 here. Is this the trend that we go for? Just spill as much booba as possible? Ever see something so much that like it kind of like kills the vibe for you? I think that's where I'm at. Like, if it's sizable booba, that's good. That's not a bad thing. Like, again, there is such thing within parameters that can be deemed as too much. Like, I think one of the craziest real life situations I've seen of it is like with people who would get BBLs. This will be their waist, and this will be the mass of their ass. This will be their tits. You can't even see my other hand at this point, but that's what it be. That's crazy. That's absolutely nuts. You don't need that. And then at that point, you're kind of attracting the wrong kind of attention. And these would often be the people who would complain about how they can't find love. Like, more often than not, I'm not like saying that there's no one who gets this, who only emphasizes on that from the surgery. Can't find it. It's just that more often than not, you emphasize the things that, you know, you want to be seen for. So then, of course, the other person who then responds to that kind of stimulus, how can you expect them to react a different way than what you should expect? Hey, you've artificially enhanced your booba, your lips, and your cheek meat. How are then you not supposed to want to stare at the enhanced lips, booba, and cheek meat? A couple of years back, there was a time around Christmas where I got done buying presents for like people in my immediate family and everything else. But like, there was this one chick, she had on, you not, again, very attractive woman, nice, fair skin, blonde hair, if I remember correctly. But all you could pay attention to was the fact that her dress was barely above her cooch. All you saw was thigh, which, nice sizable thigh. Again, body proportions, very good. But you can't be mad at people for staring when literally that's what you put on display. It was like a very, very sheer tube dress that barely covered your crotch while you're standing up straight. Imagine you sitting down, everything's on display. I think initially when my group of friends were approaching, she kind of had like a mild stank face, and then she looked away due to embarrassment. So we kind of all had to like play it cool and then look once she passed, because we were just like, yo, did you see this? Was this even real? Like, remembering it now is just so insane. I'm like, and you don't want people to think about you in a sexual manner? How? Literally how? People have brains and eyeballs. That's like if I just rolled around town with no pants on. Women are gonna stare at my just as simple as that. Or if I rolled around in a Walmart shirtless. I already wear relatively tight shirts as is. I already notice getting stared at in public as is, especially by older women. To me, it's weird. I understand it, but it is weird because I don't expect it. I was from like the nerdy dude from like middle school and high school into like working in my like younger years and just working out consistently just to stay in better health because I had a serious health decline around 23. So I had to like work out to go on and like course correct a lot of that. So just as a byproduct, my physique improved. So from where I would kind of get like just stares at from my lady for like what I was in terms of substance, in terms of like a personality and blah blah blah, now the physique followed, and then you had like more on-looking eyes, and I was like, yo, hold up, this is different. There's this red Fireball shirt that I actually really like. Shows off my pecs, and that was back when I was like benching 300 pounds. So needless to say, your boy was getting stared at. I didn't ask for this. It's just a byproduct of what I put out into the world. It's like chicks who are, and we're just gonna bring it up now, who are thotting it up on the internet. I mean, because now you were putting it on a public display. If you being a hoe on the internet, you can't expect people to not be like, hey, yo, that's kind of nice. Can I get more? People are gonna say what they say. If you put it out into the public, people will have their opinions. You cannot control that. If I wanted my image on Twitch to just be the black guy who just works out and just goes everywhere, I would simply rip my shirt out on cam. I'm not going to do it, but if I wanted that perception, I would do it. lore wise, there was a time close to 2 years ago I did try to do a workout stream. This was back when I severely fell off of my workouts, and I started to kind of rebound as a result of that. So I figured in order to hold myself accountable, I was just going to do an at-home calisthenic stream. I did one stream and then I felt so embarrassed that I never did it again. One, I felt like so bad because I got like winded mid-workout just because I was so out of practice. I was just like, and no one's gonna watch this. No one's gonna watch this. So I've never done a workout stream since. I just work out on my own time. That, I almost feel like that wouldn't even be interesting, you know? Cause like even looking through like a lot of just chatting sections when I was kind of like looking to see what I wanted to do on Twitch, and that was when I found an array of content displayed on Twitch from some girl just not speaking a single word. She just put like some face paint on herself to like kind of give like weird lines and stuff. She wore a decently revealing dress, like nice booba, decently in shape, like, you know, her form was nice, and then all she did was just wave her arms to the music, move her head, and that was the entire stream. And dudes were just giving her tips like crazy, and I was just like, what the f am I doing? Yo, if I had a Vagoobelin and a sweet rack that wasn't male oriented, yo, be nice right now. And then there's always that like perception where people are like, oh, girls don't have an easier time on Twitch. I'm like, all right, we can't pretend to be this tone deaf. We can't. There's absolutely no way we can pretend to be this tone deaf. I saw a story today, right? So I just happened to come across a story where this chick who is a streamer, but she simply just put out on Twitter, hey, yo, who's trying to go on and buy me this stuff from my wish list? I know you guys got money, piggy banks, blah, 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 you know, kind of things that are demeaning to dudes, but there unfortunately are dudes who would pay you for stuff like that, even though they're being talked to and referred to like that. It's kind of like a step back for all dudes who don't care for that kind of interaction, let's say. So there was one dude who hopped into her DMs and he was like, hey, would you mind playing Valorant with me? I will pay you. She initially took this as a joke and she laughed it off, and then he was like, but she was like, ah, how much? And he's like, oh, you tell me how much. So jokingly, she said $2,000. She showed the stub for it. He paid her $2,000 to have like 3 matches of Valorant with her. It's just a thing you end up experiencing. God, that was a long, convoluted story. How did we get here? We were talking about in-game booba, and that translated real quick to real-life booba. And then this platform selling you to booba. Another random video game story, I guess, if we're going along the same subject lines, is I never knew exactly how big ERP was big in MMOs. However, I have been subjected to it one time in my MMO life. Hearing it with a fellow Alliance member, like just seeing that it like still happens even here, but like I think the first time where I came to the realization that this was still a thing was when Asmongold had that one interview with that Final Fantasy ERPer that made like what, like $500,000 just to ERP, and I was just like, damn, you might as well just, if they can't pay up that, you might as well ask for real world money too. Shit, make that a business you can pay a rent off of. Might as well, right? And we're talking Final Fantasy too, so that's a good bit of cash. Granted, there are people that can pay for that, but like think about the housing market and how expensive that is, and I think it starts at what, $1 mil or $1 bill in game, something silly like that. So that's a substantial amount of money, and that's just for one interaction. And then again, they're the biggest in that market for that game. Okay, so yeah, my experience with ERP. This was back when we had tiny teenager Ueki, right? I believe I was like 14 years old and I was just like hopping into the like world of MMOs. It was a genre of game I've always wanted to play. I've always been interested in high fantasy and things like that. So that's where I started off with Phantasy Star Universe. I had, what was it? Or around that time, I had just gotten into high school. So as a gift, my stepdad got me an Xbox 360. And one of the games I saw that a friend of mine would play was Phantasy Star Universe. It was a 10-month subscription, but it was a game I really wanted to play because it was like a nice fusion of sci-fi, but you still had like the whole like swords and magic thing, which was awesome. So along with Phantasy Star, prior to getting that, I would play a lot of RuneScape. So, you know, you'd get your group of friends, you try to make up your own alliance of like-minded players, similar levels, maybe some had as much time as you did. And there was one person whose character name was Reese. And Reese and I ended up getting decently close. We would always play together. It was always a joy to like play with them online and lots of fun. It was always somebody to play with. I always like playing games with other people. I hate soloing. If I have to, I will. But if I could play with someone else, that just makes the gaming experience all that much more interesting. But then there was one time where, you know, we'd played for about 2 years together and we were in Varrock. Like, we'd got back from like hopping in the wilderness, randomly BSing, trying to kill dragons and things of that sort, infiltrating Black Knight's fortress. And then they asked me, do you want a Cybers? I had no clue, so I asked, what is that? And I guess that would be the old way, the old time version of ERP. Like, I didn't really feel anything. Hold up. Let me go on and like correct this. Prior to that, you know how like in RuneScape, they were like, oh, hey, buying a girlfriend? Well, I didn't have to pay any in-game money, but I guess incidentally enough, I ended up with a girlfriend. Never shared any real information and none of that. It was very apparent I was a dude. So they took me up into the second floor of the tavern of a rock and they just started ERPing with me. Like within like 5 minutes or so, once I realized what cybersing was, I felt really weird about it, especially me because I'm pretty sure I was like 14 at the time. All I wanted to do was play the game. That's it. Like, as you said earlier, if I was feeling kind of horny, there's the hub. But yeah, no, like it just felt really weird and I kind of like logged out for the day and then I just didn't play RuneScape for like, I think about a month. Cause immediately then that's when I got Phantasy Star. So now a lot of my MMO time ended up going to Phantasy Star and like the original group of friends, they were all getting busy with school. Those dudes I knew in real life and they got me in the RuneScape, but they were doing other things. So then I was more primarily playing with Reese. But then after that, I kind of felt a little weird. So then I just got introduced to this whole other new MMO, Phantasy Star, and I really liked it just due to the aesthetic. It was action combat. So like, even though I left like a friend in my head, it felt really, really weird. I don't know. Again, I kind of like dropped it relatively quick and I just felt weird the entire time. And I'm assuming like reflecting on it, it was either a dude or a chick, but they were definitely somebody that was older than me. Cause even though I didn't give out too much personal information, I do remember stating my age at that point, which again, I was definitely a minor. So yeah, those be the stream stories, peeps. So yeah, through all like the random people legislation who are looking to like use gaming as an out and are kind of like trying to weaponize it to kind of deflect blame, it doesn't necessarily make sense because those are one of the few like proving grounds where lessons can be learned without any real world ramifications for the most part. Of course, there are people who can translate those into real world, but at least upon initial impressions, you can learn those lessons while still being able to walk away. Your feelings might get hurt a bit. You might find out somebody's true nature and it might suck, but at least then you know there was at least another person on that end, and it kind of gives you that realization, oh hey, this is how people can be. So now you've had that lesson, you can go on and prepare. You can go on and not be shocked if it does happen in real life or something. You can more or less guard yourself, right? Like, dang. I was not expecting this much story time in the stream. You have to believe me. Even using the person who like scammed me in like PSU. Everybody does at some point, but I did get scammed like when I was about 17 or so in PSU. Yeah. Yeah, it was a long time ago, but it was a good lesson to learn. Yeah. Reese, if you by any chance happen to, like, if that name relates to you and you happen to by some odd bit end up watching this stream, I don't hate you, whoever you may be. And again, that was years ago, so you're probably a changed person, hopefully for the better. If anything, since I'm not harmed, especially physically in any kind of way, I kind of just consider this a learning experience. It seems that a lot of like in-life learning experiences I've had to experience technically from MMOs, like learning that people do whatever they need to in order to steal. I learned that from an MMO. I learned that from Phantasy Star Blueburst. Technically, it was like an in tandem lesson from Phantasy Star Universe, and I ended up finding the person in Blueburst. You know, trade scamming and all that other stuff. I didn't lose anything physically, but I did lose something that had value to me in game just because someone didn't care. They made out like a bandit on their own. So again, that was just like a hard lesson to learn. From then, I decided no more personal trades for in-shop things. Let me just make sure it's only through the in-game system of the player shops. Silly things like that. But it stands as a nice testing ground to go in and check the mettle of people.